What's up, everybody? Rod J back in the house. Thanks for swinging by to check out another video. Always appreciate you guys tuning in. And today I'm just going to get into a little bit of the beer news taking place this last week. I'm going to hit upon this a little bit in the podcast as well when I release that. But today I'm talking about back Unturned Brewing out of San Antonio. And if you haven't seen the news on them, they have become the center of a story around the Black is Beautiful beers. Essentially, they were supposed to provide proceeds from the sale of the beer, like many of the breweries, or it should be all of the breweries that are involved, although they're all being checked at this point, I guess, to one of the causes in their areas. You know, it was supposed to be a beer around racial justice and equality, and so there were questions about how's the money being placed. You know, there was an auditing type situation, and so they were reached out to by Weathered Souls, and essentially they actually kind of tried to blow off Weathered Souls and say they didn't want to provide the information and they weren't going to give up who was doing what or where they were sending the money to, blah, blah, blah. That kind of led to a situation where Weathered Souls was kind of like, I believe, maybe you shouldn't, be a part of it then if it's going to be like this. And someone ended up really tricking the owner into getting him to talk about on Instagram where he actually sent the money to. He basically gave a name where he sent it to one of the trainers that he actually trained under. He was a black trainer down in San Antonio. And so that person was reached out to, and you can see this all through the story I have on the screen here. And what I'll do is I'll actually put a link to it in the description if you want to check it out. But they reached out to the trainer, and it happened to be our good friend Afro Beer Chick. And the trainer said he had no idea what was taking place. So he was fully unaware of what was going on, and that brought light back onto Back Unturned. Like, what are you trying to hide? Like, why are you saying you did it to someone else and they don't know? And basically now it's the thing, well, I think they're trying to backpedal and say, well, they hadn't announced to him they were doing that or whatever. You know, it's all these different circles that are taking place. But the fact of the matter is they were called out on something they were supposed to be doing. And had they not been called out on it, chances are they probably wouldn't have done it. Then they threw it to someone they thought would have their back, I guess, and he came clean like, I have nothing to do with this. I have no idea what you're talking about, which even brought more heat on Back Unturned. So some people now are talking about not going to Back Unturned, kind of boycotting for what they did out there. That's something that people have to make up their own individual mind about. But if you're going to join on to a program and be part of a collaboration, you should do what you say you're going to do. And if you are doing that, there's no need to be defensive. So it's kind of a weird situation taking place right now for those of you guys down around Texas and San Antonio. You're probably hearing about some of this and seeing some of this. But again, I'll put a link to this piece out there so you can see some of the story rundown. They did a good job of kind of summarizing some of the details. I actually had some things that were sent to me by some of the other people that were involved and kind of checking into it. It's just a whole crazy type mess. Right now we're at a point where Weathered Souls is saying they're actually going to work with the brewery to try to make sure this gets applied. It's kind of a little bothersome on the way that was also handled, because they pretty much came out with a statement that was, and I'm going to look at here on my cell phone, but essentially how they didn't want to crucify someone because of the negative light that it brings to the beer, and they're going to try to work to kind of get it all done. But the thing is, they brought it out themselves. So Weathered Souls brought it out when they basically went out after what was going on, and then bringing out information where it wasn't being done, and then they're going to come back now and try to cool the waters. But it's kind of like, if you're going to be A-okay with it, why are you bringing it up in the first place? Why are you trying to basically get out here and get things riled up, and then people are going to be riled up around it, but then you're going to try to put the genie back in the bottle? You really can't do that. And it's kind of like, why is it always like a forgiveness type thing that takes place when things like this happen as well? It's kind of like they knew what they were supposed to do. They signed up for what they were going to do. Hold them accountable when they don't do it. And there's no need to try to, in my mind and in my opinion, kind of come out with this whole thing where you have to put out the olive branch. I mean, it's a sad thing that it happened this way. And there may be other breweries. I haven't heard of any other breweries where this has happened to. So now people are checking with their breweries to see how they did support. I like a lot of the breweries I've seen, the ones I've had, they've actually noted who they were actually providing the money to and what groups they were supporting. So that was a good thing there as well. But it's just one of those stories that is now popping up that you may see. And it's kind of a weird situation. I don't get any of the back unturned beer, but I know some of the people down in Texas have pretty much said they're pretty much not drinking them at this point because of the actions they kind of shown here. And you feel like they were trying to get in on something, but not kind of wanting to satisfy what was needed, right? They were in there for that free ride, put the name out there, get the extra money in, and to do what they were going to do. And then we get to a question of the guy that he chose for a business was his own personal trainer. He was basically lining his own pockets off the cause as well, if you look at it that way. So an interesting thing out there. Just wanted to kind of highlight that for this week. I'm going to hit maybe a little bit more of this on the podcast when I release that for this week here on March 8th. But just keeping you guys in the loop on some of the things happening in the beer world. Thanks for checking out this video. I look forward to catching up with you guys soon. Keep drinking those good craft beers. Remember, there's always time. Get your beer on. Cheers, everybody.